that one ended up in a turnover.
Taking a chance because he's such a great passer.
When the Dallas Mavericks stunned the NBA world by obliterating the Phoenix Suns on the road in a Game 7 elimination game of the Western Conference semifinals, with Luka Doncic dominating that series and leading his underdog team to a series win against the best team in the regular season and the defending Western Conference champions, it was believed at that time that the Mavericks were making the right strides in their trajectory of becoming a championship-level team. Not for that season anyway. I don't think anyone really expected that they would take out the Warriors in a 7-game series, and the fact is they even got beaten pretty handily in that series against the Warriors, but it was more so the fact that in their attempt to build around their franchise player in Doncic and in getting to the Western Conference Finals in dramatic fashion by taking out the Suns in 7 games, that this team was on the up and up and on their way to winning titles very soon, with their superstar, only 23 years old, having really not even entered his prime yet, only going to continue to get better. And because they had a top 5 player in the league, the likely future face of the NBA, it would be that much easier to recruit and build around Luka. Well, that is until the early going of this season, in which the Dallas Mavericks currently, at the time of this recording, sit with a record of 509th in the Western Conference. And again, I know it's early, we're barely made it through a quarter of the way through the season with a lot of basketball to be played, but there are a lot of concerning aspects of this Dallas Mavericks team, which I'll get into, and more importantly, Luka Doncic has not been shy about showing his frustration with this team on already multiple occasions in the early going of the season. And because of the moves, or I guess I should say the lack of moves by the Mavericks in the offseason, as well as sitting idle thus far despite their early struggles, it does make you wonder if in fact Luka Doncic, in his frustration, will boil over to the point where he will demand a trade from the Mavericks. If you're new to the channel and enjoy the content, then feel free to subscribe. As of right now, quite a few of you watching are not subscribed to the channel. As you can see, about 97% of you are not, which makes sense. It's a new channel, so again, if you like the content, it would mean a great deal to me to subscribe to help the channel grow. You can also hit that notification bell so you don't miss a video going forward. So I don't think anyone will disagree that immediately in Doncic's rookie season, we knew we were watching a superstar in the making. I mean, really, for the most part, we saw that well before he was even drafted, except for the Suns, Kings, and the Hawks. But with the way Luka was dominating a league of grown professional basketball players in Europe at the age of 18, you knew this kid was going to be something special. And he has been exactly that and more since entering the NBA, putting up insane numbers on crazy efficiency. I made a video earlier in the season on the channel on the thing that actually most impressive to me about this season from Luka in particular has actually been how much he has improved on the defensive end. Not saying he's an elite defender by any means, but a respectable enough of a defender compared to what he used to be, posting career highs in defensive box plus minus, defensive rating, and highs in blocks and steals per game so far this season. Of course, all that to go along with his insane scoring ability, leading the league, putting up 33 points per game, 8.4 rebounds, and 8.7 assists, and 4th in the league in overall player efficiency rating. The guy has been straight balling, but yet his team isn't. Now, you could argue some of that is to an extent on Luka, as he hasn't really looked like the most encouraging teammate between screaming after a missed assignment or blatantly avoiding giving them high fives in a timeout. And at times, maybe Luka is playing a little too much hero ball that might frustrate teammates and negatively impact the game. But the larger issue at hand is how this team is constructed. They have one of the best players in the game, heading into the peak of his prime, a generational talent. And their second best player is Spencer Dinwiddie, or I don't know, maybe potentially Christian Wood, who is coming off the bench for them. You look at the Mavs core, starting lineup of Luka Doncic, Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, Dwight Powell, and Reggie Bullock, with Tim Hardaway Jr. sometimes getting the start. That's the team you put around Luka. They lost Jalen Brunson in the offseason, who was such an important and underrated piece for what they did last season on the offensive end, and playing alongside Luka in the backcourt, both very crafty and effective finishers at the basket. I can't really blame the Mavs too much for losing Brunson, because it's pretty clear some shady tampering went on, and the Mavs really weren't even given a chance to make him an offer to counter the Knicks, but either way, they lost Brunson. Now, they did make that trade for Christian Wood, which I thought was a great pickup for them, especially considering the little amount they had to give up to get him. But then the rest of their offseason, especially as it relates to free agency, were just head scratchers. They signed JaVale McGee to a 3-year deal, but a fully guaranteed 3-year deal for a 34-year-old JaVale McGee. They're really going to be paying him when he's 37 years old. They extended Maxi Kleber to a 4-year deal with $42 million, which that extension I can live with, even though Kleber is now on the wrong side of 30, hasn't really been playing all that well, and is now injured. They had that horrible Davis Bertans contract that they took in that Porzingis trade, and Bertans has been so bad he's effectively out of the rotation. Tim Hardaway Jr., again, an okay player, but not for the contract he's on, where he's still got 3 years left on his deal, making near $20 million. They also signed Kemba Walker for a minimum deal, which again, don't know how that helps this team when they're already pretty guard heavy. And overall, you look at the Mavs' depth, the lack of salary cap space that they have for the next few seasons with a lot of these guys locked up for the foreseeable future. Their only expiring contracts are Christian Wood, who you would think they'd have to re-sign unless they're okay losing him after giving up assets to get him, and Frank Ntilikina, Theo Pinson, and Kemba Walker. Those are their only expiring deals. It would be one thing if this team looked bad on paper this season with little depth, poor roster construction, but you had most players on expiring contracts and had a ton of cap space going into this upcoming offseason to go after a big name free agent to put around Luka. But no, you're committed to a lot of these guys with their guaranteed contracts, unless of course they plan to make trades, which at this point, if you're the Mavs, you have to start making some aggressive moves now that more and more of the players around the league are trade eligible after passing the December 15th deadline for a fair amount of free agents unable to be traded at the start of the season before that. And if the Mavs aren't aggressive in making concrete, impactful trades that really show Luka, hey, we know this roster isn't built the best around you right now, but we're committed to showing you that we're building a title contending team, and here's how we're going to do it. If they balk, they make minor trades that don't move the needle, or worse, just stand pat at the deadline, there is no doubt in my mind that over the course of the season, Luka is going to grow more and more frustrated, realizing this team isn't it. They're not going to be able to make a deep playoff run, if they even make the playoffs, and they don't have much in the way to work with for the future with all the money they committed to the roster and limited assets they have available to them for trading. I mean, that's the other thing. You look at the Mavs roster, it's not like they have a lot of trade chips outside of just giving up draft capital. Most of the guys on their roster do not have a ton of trade value, maybe outside of Christian Wood if they wanted to flip him before the deadline because he's still in his prime and on an expiring contract, but everyone else, either bad contracts that teams aren't going to want to take on unless you're including draft picks in the deal, or players that are well past their primes where they're not going to get you big time value in a trade. And because of all of this, the team not playing well, the poor roster construction around Luka, the limited cap flexibility for the next 2 to 3 seasons, the limited trade chips they have given a fair amount of their players are on bad contracts, and in my opinion, they also don't have the best coach, but that's a separate issue. Because of all of this, I would not be shocked if by the end of the season, unless the Mavericks somehow outperform and exceed expectations and make another deep playoff run, but if they're a play-in team and get beaten badly in the first round, which is the most likely outcome, I would not be shocked to see Luka demand a trade in the offseason. And honestly, you really couldn't blame him, even if you're a Mavs fan. Like, this is not how you build around a generational talent. This is not how you build around a top 5 player in the NBA, a likely future Hall of Famer and a likely future all-time great, even though I know we're getting ahead of ourselves there. This isn't how you build around this superstar caliber level of player. It's why you saw LeBron James leave Cleveland the first time around, because they continually failed to put quality talent around him for such a high profile player and the face of the NBA. It's why you saw Kevin Durant leave the Thunder when he was a free agent, although KD had great talent around him. That was really just a bitch move, going to a 73 win team that he couldn't beat himself, which he still tries to defend that decision to this day. But you get the point. A little bit of different circumstances because KD and LeBron were free agents, while Luka in this instance would be demanding a trade. The Mavs, though, lack of quality defenders. They're one of the worst defensive teams in the league, one of the worst shot blocking teams in the league. They are the worst rebounding team in the NBA, which is a little surprising considering they actually have quite a bit of size on their team in the front court. And despite taking a high volume of threes, they're the middle of the pack when it comes to their three-point percentage and 18th in the league in overall field goal percentage. Limited shooting, limited rim protection, very poor rebounding. They're also one of the worst free throw shooting teams in the league, and they're also second to the last in the league in overall pace. Not a good transition team, not a good passing team, 28th in the league. I mean, the numbers don't lie, let alone the eye test. This is not a recipe for a title contending team. In fact, they're very far from that. So something has to be done in bringing another star level player or even two, and role players that complement Luka's skills and make up for the few weaknesses he has in his game. Otherwise, Luka is going to get fed up and want out. Franchise players don't want to waste their primes playing on average teams. They just don't. So I think a lot will be telling over the next few months to see how the Mavs adjust and make swift changes to their roster to keep Luka happy. And then ultimately, what will Luka do if they simply keep this roster intact? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.